Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Heidi, and I have the great pleasure to serve as the chair of the Pearl Creek STEAM APC. I want to welcome you all tonight. Thank you for joining us. We do have a host of representatives from our APC that I would like to go along and introduce. If those on the APC want to just say something short about yourself and what has drawn you to this, I think that would be great. And then we can proceed on from there. Let's go first with Dawn.
It's a little different. I found the unmute. Okay. Hi. Yeah, my name is Dawn Oland. I am been a part of the PCSC STEAM. Well, I don't think I got all that right. Anyways, the charter for Pearl Creek, and it's been really wonderful getting to know all the wonderful community that is excited about this and is spearheading this. So it's been such a great honor. I will, of course, apply when this goes through. So I look forward to being there with everyone else.
Shauna, do you want to go next?
You bet. My name is Shauna Henderson, and I was the past principal of Pearl Creek. And this is my 22nd year in education. I've been a principal in and around Fairbanks for about the last 15 years. And I think part of what really excited me about the prospects of Pearl Creek STEAM Charter was a really amazing, great group of energetic parents who really had the shared vision to provide a different type of educational experience and opportunity for kids. And so I think that's what kind of got me hooked, and then it's kind of just grown from there. But I've really enjoyed being a part of this positive experience, working with parents and families who have the shared vision of doing something different in our community.
Jen, would you like to go ahead?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Redmond. I'm a parent of 2 boys. I'm the treasurer, and I'm really excited for Pearl Creek STEAM and to support it. And yeah, I've experience in finance. That's accounting is my background, and I'm a treasurer on all the boards I'm on. So that's what I do, and I'm excited to support this opportunity.
Ben, are you on? I'm working on my Google Meet skills, so give me 1 second here. Any other APC members on here at this moment who would like to introduce themselves?
Hi. Hi.
Okay.
I'm Edgar. I just wanted to help with the school for to help with the Native community, and yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you, Edgar. And then we have a couple founding parents who are here who I would like to also introduce. We have Christina Turman. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm excited to be here tonight. Been super involved in this process, really pumped about this school, and like Shauna said, just working with a motivated community to bring something new to Fairbanks. And honestly, just having a little more agency and getting to be a part of setting the culture and making it a really welcoming culture where we can find everyone's strengths and get people doing what they're passionate about to help make the school is really exciting to me. So yeah, super happy to be here.
And then April, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry, it took us a minute to figure out the camera. My name is April Monroe, and I had kids at the original Pearl Creek Elementary for many years and was excited about the idea of kind of building something really new on that foundation, and, you know, specifically really interested in making sure how we took what worked at Pearl Creek and make it made it more accessible to the broader community. So happy to be here.
Thank you, April. Okay, did Ben log on yet? Don't see him. I'm trying to monitor the list as well here. So, okay, when Ben logs on, we will introduce him. He is our vice chair. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Shauna, who's going to kind of give us an outline of what Pearl Creek is going to look like, Pearl Creek STEAM, and what a day in the life of a Pearl Creek student could be. As she goes through this, I suspect she will answer many of your questions about that have been frequently asked. And so we'll see if they all get answered. If they don't and you have another question, please write it down and we will take some time at the end to answer those questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Shauna.
Thank you so much. I should probably start by also mentioning I was born and raised right here in Fairbanks and actually attended Pearl Creek when I was a kid. It opened when I was in 3rd grade, and so I attended there. But one thing that I've been really struck with through this process, and one thing that is really important to me, is a sense of belonging. And I really, as we were going through this process of creating a charter, had that kind of foundational feel of belonging to this group of parents and educators. And so I think I speak of that because I want you to know that that's at the foundation of the STEAM charter, is having kids feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. So really that's the vision of the school, really looking at place-based education, looking at how we can incorporate science, technology, engineering, arts, and math in identifying real world problems and then going deep and finding solutions amongst our students at our school to solve some of those. That will increase student agency, but also I feel like add to that sense of belonging, which we know all students need to have in order to feel like they are part of something bigger, feel like they're part of our community, as they will be the future leaders of Fairbanks or wherever it is they may go. So with that said, I will share some of the kind of exciting components to our educational programming that we've worked on that makes Pearl Creek a STEAM charter different than, say, your neighborhood school or different than other charter schools. And I think what I can do, although I haven't practiced this, is share some slides. So let me try it right now. Let me see. Slideshow, okay. And sorry, I am not as well versed at Google Meets as I am. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let me go. Oh, right there. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Maybe, oh, you can. Oh, great. So let's see. Getting a little warning on my screen. This is the educational programming that the STEAM charter is based on. And so that's really a deep dive into daily electives that explore topics such as robotics, science, art, technology, engineering. Each grade level has kind of a real world problem. And I'll just give you an example as I talk about our education programming. So for our youngest learners or kindergartners, the real world problem is food for our community or food preservation. And this is connected with the next generation science standards and the Alaska state standards in science, which for kindergarten are centered around animals, plants, and earth. And so the STEM exploration for these younger students will be at the kindergarten grade band level and will be anywhere between 30 minutes to a deeper dive to 90 minutes a day, looking at how we can come up and solve some of these problems, but also look at things that are connected to food for our community. Then you'll see on Lab Fridays, Fridays are a special day at the charter where we look at half-day sessions dedicated to project-based learning, field work, maybe a big art project, field trips, and hands-on experiences. So some examples of a sample Friday for our kindergarten students could be going to Calypso, looking at land to farm information that they have, going to the landfill, going to the food bank, perhaps going to the grocery store, local greenhouses, starting plants at Pearl Creek for our own garden, having guest artists such as Iris Sutton come and look at artwork that dives deep into plants and animals, and then getting together with food experts, both tribal food experts and local experts from the tribal food security folks like Heidi Radar. So again, really coming together to take a deeper dive into how we can solve the issue of food for our community. In addition to that, we have inquiry-based learning, which I think I spoke about, but encouraging students to stay curious, ask questions, develop hypotheses, and conduct investigations. So again, looking at our kindergarten learners, this might be looking at tools for food preparation, including, for example, berry pickers, and investigating how berry pickers might take the actual leaf from the plant and how that could change how many berries grow on a plant. And then asking students to design a different type of berry picker. So how could we create a berry picker that maybe just can pick the berries and not the stems and leaves off of the plant? In addition to that, each grade level will have a capstone experience which centers around this real world problem, but has a culminating field trip where students can put their learning and action into to address the issue. So again, that could be, in this case, exploring our local community. But for other grade levels, it might be a bigger field trip, like going to Twin Bears and looking at, say, a survival unit around Twin Bears. But also creating this capstone project to share with not only families, but the community with what we've learned in the areas of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So I think that's really exciting. And I can give you some other examples for our third grade students. I'll kind of give you a little smattering across the grade levels. Our third grade real world problem or theme is Alaska outdoor skills and emergency preparedness for our families, pets, and community. And so that's really hinged on the national science standards in terms of habitats and life cycles, fossils, environmental changes, climates of the world, and electricity and magnets. And so some of the things that we would look at for our sample Friday lab experiences would be building survival shelters, looking at how to build a fire, looking at what smoke jumpers do in terms of how their job affects the environment and how fires affect the environment, looking at water safety, looking at how to fish and the traditional ways of fishing coupled with more contemporary ways of fishing, and looking at shelters for animal. So again, this field trip would be going to Twin Bears, and we would really look at how does our environmental changes influence our own safety, using GPSs to track routes, building survival shelters as mentioned, also nature drawing, field journaling, and then studying, for example, the body for temperature and rates of hypothermia. So really hitting on all of the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math for every grade level. And then lastly, I'll just give you a sixth grade example. And that is really to look at the real world problem of plastics in our environment. Again, the science standards that this would be centered around are weather and climate, resources for the Earth systems, the human impact on Earth systems, and the health impacts of plastics. So some lab experiences for kids might be going to the recycling center, the landfill, testing local water sources for microplastics, setting up a recycled program at the school, and then visiting other health clinics to look at the impacts of plastics on humans. This kind of capstone project would be a bigger one, going to the Kenai Peninsula for more exploration, really looking at ocean hydrology and taking microplastic samples from the ocean. For technology, looking at a film, creating a film to show the effects on microplastics in the ocean. It might be coming up with ideas to remove and reduce plastics from the ocean, use recycled plastic materials to create art, and then graph and interpret data that students collect on microplastics and hydrology. So each one of these is just an example of the real world problem, but really putting students in the driver's seat for how we can solve these really community issues. This can't be done without our community partnership. And so I'm going to just talk briefly about that. If I can pull up my slide here. We're really partnering with the people that we know and who are local experts, whether that's through the Danakanaga Center, whether that's through UAF, but again, really connecting with guest speakers, making real world connections and bringing the school community just past the classroom. So we want kids to, again, to be part of something bigger. One of the questions that we frequently get is, would students with special needs be accommodated? And so we are a public school and we would honor IEPs and 504s. On our staff, we would have a resource teacher and support services. And so we really are committed to an inclusive education for all students. There are some students in our district who are part of a district-wide program, and those students currently aren't at charter schools, but we are open to having that if the district is wanting to go that direction and wanting to support district-wide programs at charter schools. So the next piece that I'll just share is more about our educational programming. So I kind of talked about how STEM or STEAM is really connected and drives what we do in the classroom. But then there's some other educational pieces that I'll just kind of bring up, and that is what curriculum we're using. So for reading and math, there's a curriculum called Open Up. It's through Harvard University, and it's a fairly new curriculum. But after really looking and investigating what would be the best curriculum, like for example, in math, that balances critical thinking skills with foundational skills, really this Open Up curriculum fit that bill. For reading, this program really looks at phonics, phonemic awareness for our younger readers, and then goes into comprehension, fluency, and just understanding vocabulary. And so that's why that was selected. And then with writing, really integrating what we do in the classroom with what we're studying and learning. So being able at the youngest levels to write sentences, but then as we get more complex and kids develop, being able to write paragraphs or papers that are hinged on this area of exploration. And one of the ways we talked about really measuring our success, because we want to make sure what we're doing is reaching students, is continuing with many of the same assessments that the district uses, such as the measures of academic progress and the Alaska Star State Assessment, using M-Class, which is mostly a reading diagnostic tool that looks to see if students can not only hear sounds, but be able to read them and blend sounds together to make words, but also use end of unit tests, presentations, portfolios, design thinking projects, student surveys, and school climate data. One of the things that we recognize is often one of the limitations in a public school setting is just not having time to do those deep dives. And so one of the things that we've really looked at is how can we maximize our time in the school day to allow students kind of this opportunity to walk to their electives. And so we've created a tentative schedule that, again, uses anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes based on the developmental level of the students, so they can walk to their exploration and get that deeper dive we're looking for in the classroom. And then with that said too, we'd like to take the knowledge that Pearl Creek students and teachers are acquiring through their learning and create like a curriculum repository for other educators, but really be a school like a learning lab where other teachers could bring students for field trips, where we could partner with other schools and just create a rich environment for that academic learning. In addition to that, I can speak a little bit more about the English language arts. Again, our plan is to have a kind of a big block of time in the morning that students will be exposed. With our K2 students, really looking at that targeted instruction we know they need in phonemic awareness, so like being able to hear the sounds, phonics, being able to say the sounds, and then blend those sounds together, comprehension, vocabulary, and fluency. Not only is our plan to use the open up curriculum, but also supplement with Haggerty, which is really a phonemic awareness supplemental tool, and then UFly, which is out of the University of Florida. It captures the phonics piece that kids really need in order to be successful readers. And so the district's currently using that and seeing a lot of success. So sticking with that. And then as kids get older and they are moving from learning to read to then using reading to learn, using like literature circles, which really looks at kind of like book studies. And again, this is going to be based on what we're doing in the classroom. So for example, in third grade, if we're studying survival, then reading the book The Hatchet, which looks at a boy that is going into the wilderness after the plane crashes and looking at skills that he learned in order to survive, or the book Two Old Women, which really is based on Alaska Native culture and traditions of how two older women were kind of outcasted from their tribe and how they were able to learn to survive on their own. And so using really relevant text to support what we're doing in the classroom. And I should also say too, one of the great things about having access to kind of these traditional lands that Pearl Creek sits on is really being able to explore our natural world. And so, for example, just as I mentioned how in third grade, it's about Alaska survival, really using our outdoor lands to then go even deeper and maybe explore our surroundings on snowshoes, looking at how to build snowshoes the traditional way compared to modern snowshoes. So I think in the past, Pearl Creek often did really neat outdoor activities, but they weren't necessarily connected to with what we were doing in the classroom. And I see this as a big shift or a difference. So again, having lots of outdoor opportunities, whether that be through nature journaling, drawing, hiking, looking at the flora and fauna, but having it connected to that real world problem that will kind of take us throughout that school year. And then again, math, I spoke a little bit about really balancing foundational skills that we know kids need with some deep critical thinking. And again, this really pairs nicely with our mathematic component of STEAM, of really looking at that data, collecting those numbers, counting those berries on those bushes, or how many microplastics are showing up in the ocean, and then using that data to help drive what we're doing and use that as a mathematical tool. For science, again, I think I spoke about using the next generation science standards, but also coupled with the Alaska state standards. We want to make sure what we're doing in the classroom prepares students, not just for the future, but to move on successfully to middle school or high school if the students choose not to go to middle school. So we really want to give them those hands-on rich experiences to explore, to learn, to collaborate, to feel like a local scientist in their own school. And then with social studies, same thing, looking at our Alaska cultural standards and using where we're located and our partnerships with FNA, and really looking at the Alaska Native perspective as we explore science, technology, arts, and math, looking at the real world problems and again, how we can solve those as a diverse community. And then arts is a big part of the STEM process. So I think in many ways, traditional schools look at success in a unit as producing good test results from a unit quiz. But we would really like to expand on that and say, all right, students, if you know the knowledge for what is the best berry picker, you could show that by creating a small film. You could show that through dance, through song, through art. So really expanding how kids can utilize the arts to not only be good designers and thinkers, but also how to showcase some of their own learning. And so with this, we're really hoping for student achievement, for students to have those advanced, enhanced critical thinking skills. Again, we know that when students feel part of something bigger, then that gives them more agency and makes them have really a robust academic experience. And then perhaps having those students look at a range of pursuing STEAM careers, and whether that's here locally or outside. And so again, we hope that students with all of these acquired skills will go on to score well in statewide tests, but to us, it's not just about those statewide test scores. And I have no doubt that students won't perform well, but again, creating those community members that have that sense of belonging, even at the age of 5. And I think that might be everything that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sorry, that was a lot of talking. And I know, as Heidi said, we can have questions at the end if I might have missed something. So I'll just turn it over to our next person, and I'll try to unshare my screen here.
Thank you, Shauna. I appreciate the outline. I think I can imagine that everybody who is on, who hasn't been part of the curriculum process, learned something. So thank you for doing that. I am going to turn it over to April next, who is going to talk about cultural programming, partnerships, equity, and accessibility.
Okay, awesome. So I think the first thing that I want to do is we've got a couple of the equity committee members on the meeting. I think at least Brooke is here and Maureen. So I'm going to put them on the spot to introduce themselves before I present their work and make myself sound cool. So Maureen or Brooke, and if and I think maybe Holly too, but whoever's on, if you guys want to pop on and introduce yourselves, then I'll give our presentation.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. This is Maureen McGinty. I'm also a parent that has had children in Pearl Creek for many years. I have one 6th grader that will be joining this fall, I hope. And I chair the equity committee along with amazing volunteers. And yeah, I'm super excited. And April is ready to sound cool. She knows all the things.
Okay, and I think Brooke, although I think Brooke and Holly may be on a phone, I'm not actually sure they can unmute. But if so, feel free to interrupt me anytime. So I think actually the place that I want to start is just by kind of generally shouting out the incredible members of the equity committee and the incredible amount of work that they've put in. I think that when you look at the issue of equity in education, it's this very dynamic, complex, large looming issue. And in Alaska, it is the issue is so profound, particularly for Indigenous kids who just, even as everyone on this call likely knows, we've got a district that scores some of the lowest across the country. We don't really know why. There's a lot of people thinking about why, but one thing that we do know is that even as modest gains are beginning to be made, that they're leaving Indigenous kids behind. That by and large, they're leaving people of color behind. And that there's an incredible disconnect. One of the person most likely in the developed world to get a PhD is an Alaska Native woman. Yet at the same time, the child most likely in the developed world to be behind their peers in core subjects like basic literacy or mathematics is our Alaska Native girls. So it just goes to show you that there are problems which are systemic. And we also know that in addressing these issues, we increase the quality of education for all students. There's so much wisdom to be drawn from the place that we are. So was so humbled and excited to be part of this group of just some of the people that I think are like the most, some of the smartest, most interesting people that I know. So Maureen, the committee chair who just spoke, Maureen was heavily involved in a project you may have recently seen, the Mary Tall Mountain Project, platforming the work of a really important Indigenous poet, and actually has some elementary curriculum toolkit developed, which will be implemented at Pearl Creek. Got Betty Griffin, who is a lifelong retired teacher, Katie Summer, Holly Wooford, who is the Interior's probably most prolific elementary Danaka or Indigenous language teacher, Natasha Singh, who runs all of Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, Brooke Woods, who's on the phone. She's the president of the Fairbanks Native Association and a talented fish biologist who's been working diligently for many years on the fish crisis. Kathy Mayo, who is the daughter of actually Pearl Creek's first principal, who was an Indigenous engineer. People whose, if I rattled through their biographies, we would be here all day, but just suffice to say, some of the most impressive folks that I've known through the course of my life. Edgar, obviously, I think he's great. Married him. Drew Olson, Lance Albert, Heather Rubio, Dwayne Burnham, Darren and Janice Hildebrand, Laverne Huntington. We've just been blessed in spades to have the labor of these folks to endeavor to make Pearl Creek both a more accessible place and to, with deep thought, integrate a lot of Indigenous wisdom and curriculum. So I want to run through some of the kind of core equity committee recommendations and what they look like in implementation. So the first is around staff training. So staff who teach at Pearl Creek are required to complete one of these 3 trainings. And this is something which repeats every year and is training that is designed to help people better kind of understand the world and the climate around us. So the Alaska Blanket Exercise, or TCC, decolonization through Native movement, and then there's a similar training offered through ANTHC. In examining just the most obvious barriers to attendance at a charter school, the 2 things the equity committee flagged as the most significant is first, of course, transportation. So the state of Alaska has a law that actually requires school districts to provide transportation on existing lines to students who are attending charter schools. Currently, our district is not compliant with that regulation, and it's I think a conversation that we are really prepared to be at the helm of. But until then, we are collaborating, seeing what we can do to create at least a single bus line, which will run from TCC or in the downtown area. So maybe near the clinic or Big Dip, or kind of the Big Dipper housing over to TCC. And then potentially what we're hoping for is there's another charter located very close to U Park that also struggles in not having transportation. We're hoping to be able to kind of join forces and have this singular bus. So we're exploring having that funded by our community. And then, of course, the other barrier, and the one which was harder to address, that we think also really impacts student success, is just about the climate at the school. So a lot of the other recommendations touch that. One of them is the integration of elders. It's a core value in many cultures, but certainly in Indigenous culture, that the truest learning comes through experience, and that it's important to be deferential to people who have walked before us. And also, lots of data indicates that the integration of the elderly with children is beneficial to everyone, but particularly beneficial to children. If you think about the way you act at your grandma's house, I think we can all relate to this notion that I had heard this saying that somebody was translating for me that said, grandparents can plant flowers in the darkest part of ourselves. And that basically that there's a lot to be said about the impact of having elders present in schools. So we have developed partnerships with organizations to help facilitate having elders in residency. We are in conversation with Danakanaga, and then we have partnered with Fairbanks Native Association in order to bring elders who have particular expertise just to be present deeply in a school. The next is the acknowledgement of Indigenous science as science. Something that we need to know when we look around our environment, right, is that the people who are Indigenous to any given area have effectively been in relationship with the place for 15 15,000 plus years, right? Western science would acknowledge 15,000 years. Indigenous knowledge would say time immemorial. And over the course of that time, that's like conducting an observational study that kind of even escapes the limits of human thought, right? That so much has been learned about place. And also that the best way to communicate that knowledge is through deference to Indigenous language. So in partnership with some of our equity committee language workers in YKSD, who have already done a great deal of developing language immersion curriculum, we're going to incorporate Indigenous language through the school in an immersion fashion. And what this does not look like is it doesn't mean a language class. What it means is acknowledging and using Indigenous language. Oftentimes there are words for there are things around us that English doesn't even have a word for, right? So incorporating the language of this place into the education for our children. The next is the traditional physical education. So using activities which are traditional to this place, snowshoeing and seasonal, snowshoeing, berry picking, things that are part of our landscape is part of physical education. Under the recommendation for the long-term nutrition, it's the goal of the school to be able to adopt a more local and simplified diet. We intend to open using nutritional services through the district, but there's a long-term stated goal to adopt dietary practices, so basically to cook at school, right? And to adopt a diet which looks more appropriate for the place, utilizes a relationship with state troopers to utilize to kind of captured, or the roadkill program, like the illegally taken meats, etc., like that, and then donations to use more like having things like moose soup and sheep meat and fish in school. A focus on garden-based activity. So a big recommendation that came out of the equity committee was expansion of the use of garden, both as a food source, but also as a source of curriculum. And then the incorporation of traditional kind of just Alaskan cultural and Indigenous Alaskan events, having a culture week, having spring carnival, teaching kids the customs and the practice of potlatch, engaging those open practices, which are so important to this place. We have recommended a summer camp and like summer usage of the campus to some of our partnered organizations, both to amplify the work of those organizations and to just deepen the nature of that relationship. And then trauma-informed practices throughout the school. So the practice of mindfulness, and this as both a way to have trauma-informed discipline, but also is a way to acknowledge that intervention, the practice of mindfulness at an elementary age does not at all look like overt conversations necessarily about suicide or hard topics. But what it does look like is teaching kids to connect what's happening between their mind and their body, and to practice the kind of mindfulness that we now understand across, many decades of data to be one of the biggest contributors we have to mental health. We do, amongst all youth in Alaska, have a suicide crisis that's hard to think about sometimes as an elementary school parent, but we know that it's that early intervention and teaching our kids to be whole body well that really makes the difference. And then around hunting season attendance policy, and this applies to kids who are engaging in activities which otherwise involve traditional learning, that teachers will work with families to make sure that during absences of this nature, kids are able to engage with natural curriculum. So this might look like if your class is currently, say, studying, I'm trying to think of like a mathematical concept, or let's say that your class is studying, something anatomical, and hunting, that might give you an opportunity to just mindfully engage in like, what does it look like to dissect a heart, or, what is this experience like, and to be able to come back and share with your classmates. One of the things that drives this belief, I think, for a lot of us who have Indigenous kids in our district who are not necessarily thriving in our current elementary schools, is that the integration of culture into an entire school both changes the climate such that our children are intentionally welcome, and that it also benefits the entire school. Some of the other partnerships that we've worked on that we feel like have really informed this and will feed the success of the school include things like artist residencies. We've partnered with NAACP to make sure that we are very mindfully and intentionally including Black history is not a once a year monthly feature, but as part of just all history. And we're really looking forward to using a model that we think will serve all children. And then the last thing I'm going to share, just because I thought that this was such a powerful thing to consider about place. I think a lot of the time, speaking just as a parent whose kids have struggled in a different environment this year, that it is so important in Indigenous belief systems for our children to be in deep relationship with the land. And that's hard to do in places that don't have some significant land base. So being on this large boreal forest gives our children just the ability to be outside, to play outside, and to learn, I think, from our greatest teacher, which is the environment around us. However, to this place specifically, I thought that I was just going to share an excerpt from this letter that at one point the Equity Committee had sent to our district that said, the Native community of Fairbanks has important longstanding ties to the land on which the Pearl Creek building stands. That meaningful acknowledgement of Indigenous relationship to place must extend beyond land acknowledgements or verbal recognition into action. It's critical to understand that within our homelands, some areas are understood through time immemorial to serve particular purpose. One such site is Trothiata. This is the name for the ridge and its viewshed, an area that now includes the University of Alaska campus, their trail system, Smith and Blaine Lakes, and the land on which Pearl Creek is situated and adjoined to. The literal translation for this place is Wild Potato Hill. But place names are important to understand the world around us. Trothiata is a place where people gathered, people from many tribes, many clans, many different cultures, to seek counsel with each other, take in information available from a series of important vantage points, and harvest. The action of cultivating, harvesting, and gathering is traditionally done in fall near the first frost, much like the beginning of school. It's work that depends upon cooperation, that requires multiple communities to work together, and lends itself to conversation, is performed across genders and across generations. Trothiata is a place for learning. It is meant to be a place that we bring our children to learn. The late Chief Peter John described it as a place where thinking and working should happen together. So a vision for a place of learning where each fall we bring our children and gather from our respective communities and cultures to learn from each other and the land is not an idea first or best articulated in this charter. Where we send our children to learn matters. There is value to coming to this place to learn that our ancestors understood. And I think just to, in the interest of brevity, want to illustrate that we think that this is going to be a very important place to learn, that it's important for the specific place to serve the purpose that it always has, but to be doing it in a way which is more intentional, which is more available to everybody. And just, we think that all these relationships and ideas will better our community and better the school. Thanks so much.
Thank you, April. I think that I'm just excited is what it comes down to. That's the bottom line, is I'm very excited. I am going to turn it over to Jennifer Redmond, our treasurer, who is going to talk about logistics at this point, and she's got quite a few things she's going to touch on. Again, if you have questions, write them down and we will circle back to them at the end. And here's Jennifer.
Hello. So I'm going to talk a little bit about teachers and staffing, transportation, childcare, and facilities. So a little bit about teachers and staffing. So we do have to do a recruitment process and go through that with the school district, where use their accounting system, use their hiring system, and the APC with the principal hired will be on the hiring committee. That will take a few weeks. And then so will you need to hire new teachers or previous teachers return? We will need to hire teachers. They'll be new to the school. It's a new school, so it'll be new teachers. but return teachers who did teach at Pearl Creek before can, of course, apply. So teachers must be certified just like all teachers in our public school system. And then there will be meet and greets before the school begins and opportunities for volunteering at the school as well. As far as transportation and childcare, as April mentioned, there isn't a bus service currently at the charter school for the first year. We are looking at grants and partnerships to bring that equitable necessity to Pearl Creek in the hopes that we can get that going next year. We have a lot of great avenues and partners that we feel like are going to be make good progress on that. So for before and after school care, we do have a memorandum of understanding with Thrive. So they'll be our partners for before and after school child care. If you haven't already, go ahead and reach out to them, let them know you're interested. And then we'll also have before and after school clubs, running club, we'll have an art club. We have a grant in with UAF, so that with NASA, so it'll be a NASA after school care program that people can go to. And a lot of enrichment opportunities in art and music with the Fairbanks Summer Arts Program they'll be leading those. The drop off and pickup times are in the handbook. And then I think there's a lot to be said about, like, we did put together a very detailed handbook on the map of the building and the drop off and pickup times and logistics and things like that. As far as facility goes, we are located at 700 Auburn Drive. It's a building, it was designed by Bidesworth North. It's one of the most energy efficient buildings in the district. A lot of south facing windows and just really a beautiful building that we're excited to be in, surrounded by boreal forest. And there'll be open tours once we get it ready, and we'll have people in to see the classrooms. All right, that's all I think I have. And then, yeah, put in the chat any questions.
Okay, and I am going to turn it over to Ben, who is going to talk about admissions here. He's got quite a list of things to talk about. So please, if you have questions, write them down. We can answer them at the end.
All right, am I coming through? Sorry, there's a dance party going on downstairs. I had to yell at them to be quiet. So I am covering admissions, and sorry, I just had the agenda up and then I closed it. Yeah, and so I will talk about how admissions works and lottery and all the details there. So the application is open, and so basically when you fill out that application, it gives us the information we need to transmit our student list to the district after admissions close. When admissions close, for each grade, if there are more applicants for that grade than there are spots, and this is all in the handbook, then that grade will be subject to a lottery process. And from the proposal for this charter, we have a tiered lottery. And so most of these tiers are actually consistent with other charters. So the first tier is staff children. So if a teacher or staff at the school has a child, those children get the first seats in the grade. The next tier after that is founding members. And so I'm sure there'll be questions about founding members, but basically founding members are folks who helped create this school from the beginning. So they logged hours during the application process and will contribute 40 hours of volunteer time before the school opens. And that again is standard, and that's only, so that is standard for charter schools as well. The third tier is in accordance with best practices is returning students. So in the future, any student who's in Pearl Creek STEAM Charter, and again, this is consistent with other charter schools, you get automatic admission into the next grade in the subsequent year. In the first year of this school, students who attended Pearl Creek Neighborhood School last school year will be in that third tier of returning students. Then there is a sibling preference. So the way the lottery works is it's actually like a round robin. And so, well, I'll get back to that and how sibling preference works. The fifth category is Title I and migrant N. So students who currently attend Title I schools or students who qualify for migrant education. And then the next tier is everyone else. And so what this looks like is, say all of our grades are oversubscribed. So every grade has more applicants than there are seats. And so what'll happen is those students will get sorted into the grades. And then within each grade, they'll get sorted by their highest priority. So some might have multiple priorities, but that staff, founding member, returning, Title I, you'll get sorted. And so basically all of the staff kids in first grade will get randomly assigned numbers based on how many kids are in that list. And then all of the founding member students in that grade will get assigned random numbers, and so on for returning students, Title I, and then for everyone else. And so what that does is it sorts that student in that grade, in that tier. And so then what we'll do is from the top of the list, we'll start granting admission from the top down to the bottom until we reach the number of seats. And then everyone below that will be on the wait list. And then if any seats are not accepted, the next person on the wait list will get that offer. And so what this will look like is, we will be, so all these applications are rolling in. We'll be sending confirmations before the closure of, to confirm this is the application received, student name, grade, tiers that they're eligible for. Sibling preference. I got to go back to that. So the way it works though is that as we're going down the list, we'll go down each grade one step at a time. So the first kid on the list in every grade will get in, and then we'll check if any of those kids have siblings. And if their sibling is in another grade, they'll get bumped up to second on the list. And so then all the second on the list get in, then all the third. If there's a sibling, they get bumped up to fourth on the list in their grade. And so that way there's no preference for, like, if you were to fill kindergarten first and then all the kindergartner siblings get in, and then by the time you get to sixth grade, you don't get their siblings in backwards. So it's a round robin, filling each grade from the top to the bottom and bringing in siblings along the way. Hopefully that's clear. I think we talked about priority levels, founding member priority, basically folks who contributed to the application and contribute 40 hours for the opening of the school. There was a period of time where the interest to enroll form included a box you could check to auto enroll. So if you check that box, we are including those in our list, and you will be getting a confirmation. I think you should have gotten a confirmation today. In all of this, if you thought you applied and you didn't get a confirmation, I've seen some emails that clearly have typos. It's just labor intensive to go through. So it does not hurt to submit another application through the current application window if you had an old intent and we're sorting out duplicates and all of that. So when will you know if your child gets in? So admissions close, I think at midnight, or applications close midnight on June 1st. We will run the lottery the next day or the next opportunity, the next few days. And then emails will go out. And I think our policy is you have 48 hours, again, consistent with other charter schools, to accept or deny or decline the offer of admission. Anything from APC members any obvious questions? I know we'll get to Q&A at the end, but anything I missed or was unclear on?
Ben, I would just mention that we did send out confirmation emails today. So if you believe that you have an application in, you should have gotten a confirmation. I would recommend checking your spam box just in case. But if you don't see one, go ahead and shoot us an email or put in another application. Because you should have gotten a confirmation today. And I think there was a little misunderstanding. Some people did the intent to enroll thinking they had done the auto enroll. So we just want to make sure anyone on this call knows if you didn't get a confirmation today that you still need to get an official application in.
Yeah.
I was also going to mention, we have a really nice visual graphic that kind of shows that process for those visual learners. I have a screenshot of it, so I'm trying to add it into the message bar, but if someone has the actual document, that might be a good link too.
One other question that we have been getting is the likelihood of getting into Pearl Creek STEAM. And in all honesty, that is something that we can't answer. That's something that we will look at come June 1st and see how many applicants we have at that point, and then we move forward based on that. So I apologize that I can't give you a percentage. It is different for every grade, and that's kind of where we're at. We're not quite certain as to the level of interest. We know it's high, but we are unable to give you a certain answer to that. With that, I will hand it over to Christina Turman, who's going to talk about future plans, what's next, volunteer needs, and I will hand the mic over to you, Christina.
Okay, great. I actually just saw a question pop up too, so good timing. It's kind of some of the stuff I'm supposed to cover. So a couple things that I wanted to cover. We've gotten the question a lot, are we going to expand and offer 7th and 8th grade? And the answer to that is to be determined. So as a charter school, you know, the parents have a lot of agency, the APC has a lot of agency. There's definitely been a lot of express interest. And I think that's something this fall when the school's actually in session, that there would be meetings about that. And if there's enough interest and people want to do the work, because it's a lot of work, as we discovered this year, you know, to build curriculum and build that out and work to amend our charter to add that, then that's absolutely a possibility. But if you're part of the school, then you'll get, you know, a say in that. So that's something that will be discussed as we actually like start the school year. We will have 6th grade this year, though. Our charter application that was approved is for kindergarten through 6th grade. And then we've had a lot of questions too about whether or not pre-K is a possibility for the future. And I think absolutely a similar answer to the adding 7th and 8th. So that's something people would be, parents would have to, you know, just be engaged in. And if that's something that we decide as a school that we want to move forward to pursue, absolutely possible. As far as status and timeline, the question, you know, there's been a lot of confusion just because it's been a rocky road and it's been a long journey to get here. So the school is officially approved at this point. We are open for fall. We appealed and got approval. So we are approved. And okay, next thing I wanted to cover was community involvement. So we formed different committees and they've sort of changed over time based on the need. Obviously there was like, you know, we have like grant writers and people who are editors for this, you know, application we put in. But now we're kind of at the fun part where we're forming committees that are more like boots on the ground. Pretty soon we're going to need a move-in committee. We're going to need people with trucks. We're going to be, you know, just sprucing up the classrooms and getting it ready to become a school again. So right now, though, we do have a few formed committees. One is the equity committee, which April spoke on. And so that's one that, you know, anyone's welcome to join. I guess I just want to mention, I think what's really exciting is we have enough different committees and different areas you can volunteer that what we'd really love to see is that people step up and step in a realm they're passionate about, they have experience in that excites them, rather than it being kind of a drag to be involved. Like find something that you are excited about and make that how you're involved. And an amazing opportunity for that is our after school club. So that's something that Pearl Creek really had going on previously, and we hope to just like increase with this new model. So examples of this, and so again, if this is something, you know, you're excited about or you know how to do, then this could be something you could step in as a parent and run an after school club. So we had anything from like flag football to basketball, like, you know, whatever sports related ones, soccer. We had a massive running club and ski club. We also had art clubs, reading clubs. We had a community service club, a hiking club, a sewing club. My husband's excited to launch the first ever disc golf club. So that's something he likes right now. So he's hoping to start a club for it. And so that's a really exciting thing that we're hoping to expand on. And so in addition to having like Thrive offering before and after school childcare, we also have these after school clubs that families can partake in and send their kids to. A few other things. So the actual formed committees, though, I mentioned equity. We also have a facilities committee, transportation committees. So if you're passionate about making sure that we figure out ways to offer transportation to children, get on that committee. people who are connected, who have good ideas. A lot of it is going to be solving a puzzle. So seeing which children need transportation, and can we, make 1 or 2 bus lines that pick them up. We have been really encouraged through our parent surveys to realize more important for accessibility for a lot of families is the before care childcare. Just being able to drop children off and then go to work is in a lot of ways makes it almost more accessible than a bus, especially if you have a young kid and the bus doesn't come till 8:40, but you have to be work at 8. It's so we are really pleased to have the before and after care set up already. Another committee is our garden committee. We want to go big on our garden. So if you have a green thumb, please sign up for that committee. We're going to have a lot of work parties. Good question, Amanda. How do we sign up for committees? Heidi, if you can drop the Pearl Creek STEAM email in the inbox, please just send us an email with the committee you're interested in joining, or if you just have a skill or something you're excited about contributing, send us an email and let us know what that is so that we can connect with you. Other committees are community partnerships committees. So if you are well connected and you're excited about different organizations that you could kind of link with the school to bring more opportunities or bring students there, joining the community partnership committee could be a great one for you. Communications committee, obviously there's a lot of responding to emails and updating the website and doing social media. And so if that's something that you really enjoy or you're good at, please consider joining the communications committee. We're definitely going to have some event planning committees as well. We do a lot of fun community and family oriented events at Pearl Creek STEAM. That's part of the plan. So if you're an event planner, if you like to throw a good party, there's going to be a place for you. And then also there's so many other volunteer, we'll probably have a deep clean committee where I don't know if it'll be monthly or quarterly, but we'll just roll up our sleeves and go do a really deep clean one evening to just spruce up the school. So it can look so many different ways. And let's see here. I think the other question we're definitely getting is, is the school for sure opening with some of the comments school board members have made? And so I did just read in the local paper, the school board president was quoted in saying that they're looking at maybe taking legal action against our approval. It's profoundly disappointing to read. I think it's a pretty big waste of taxpayer dollars. We went through a very legal process to do this appeal, and our application was found, was approved because it was a really quality application. Typically, as charter schools are created by community members and teachers and parents who have an idea and they're excited about it. And so Alaska state law says that if you are a group and you bring forward a new idea and you put in a tremendous amount of work to build out your curriculum and put together a great application, you have a location, and then you have the community interest, then you are able to open a charter school. And so we have done, and that's a really simplified version, but we've done everything. We've studied so many other approved applications or charters to see what the standard was and to make sure we didn't only meet it, but that we are hopefully exceeding what the standard is. And so we worked super hard and we're super excited about this. And our approval came at the state level, but we're still legally approved. So right now, it sounds like, at least according to Bobby's quote in the paper, they're considering some sort of lawsuit against the state approval. We're not super worried about that. To actually prevent us from opening, I think they'd have to get an injunction by a judge, which would be very rare and hard to get. And then I just hope that they decide this is a silly, let's move forward. We're all ready to move forward and work together. We're excited to work with our local district. We're not here as a threat. We're here to offer something new and exciting. We know our school's going to draw people back into the district. We already have 50 out of district, private school, homeschool, different families that want to come back to be part of the STEAM school. So really is a positive thing. Again, I'm totally speaking personally here, not representing the whole school, but I think, variety is the spice of life. I think what makes a community really amazing is having different options, and every school has its own culture and its own, values and things, its strengths and its weaknesses, and offering a new avenue, and especially a school located in this boreal forest and outside of an urban setting is just a really cool thing to have in Fairbanks. So I'm really excited. I'm hopeful that the district won't waste taxpayer dollars on a lawsuit. And if they do, I'm not worried about it because we did nothing wrong. So there's really, we'll be fine. It's just one other hurdle. We've already gotten over like 27. So we look forward to opening this fall. If I think one important thing though is it is definitely a good idea. If you're excited about the school, you can shoot the school board an email and just be like, hey, we're excited. Please don't take legal action. There's also a school board meeting tomorrow night, so you can testify there. There's different options to just make your voice heard, and that's important because they represent the community. And the last thing I'll say is there is a little bit of kind of a small but vocal group who's talked a lot about how this school would hurt other schools. And I just think it's important to explain that we are not taking funding from other schools to start the school. The way charters work is the funding attached to the student that attends there follows them. We don't take funding from other students at other schools. So that's the one important thing. The other thing is we're in a very different fiscal reality than we were last year or the year before that. Unfortunately, state funding hasn't been great. Our district did have to make a lot of cuts. But as we all read in the paper, they also just recently had to return $11.4 million in excess funding. And that just shows, that's proof right there. They're in a different financial reality right now. So if their savings account is so big, they had to return money, they have a little bit of a buffer. I was also thrilled to read that our assembly just ponied up another $1.3 million. This was just like a day or two ago. And from my understanding of their budget right now, our districts, it's not including an increase in state funding. And everyone I've talked to anticipates it might be one-time funding, but there should be some more funding coming at the state level. And then in addition to that, with these 50 students coming from out of district, we're actually bringing money into the district that wasn't there previously. So I just want to make sure we understand those facts because there's, I hate to say it, but it's gaslighting. There's some like narratives that are really trying to make us like, you're so evil for starting this school. But man, we have spent, let me tell you, a lot of time crunching numbers and looking at the formulas and understanding the finances because that's important to me. If this school was going to devastate everyone else, I probably wouldn't be behind it. You know, I love my kids, but I love Fairbanks community. And so just making sure we actually are just transparent about that because we hear that narrative and, you know, I'm kind of like, well, do you have an hour to look at budget spreadsheets with Ben? Because we could explain to you the reality, but it's hard when there's a lot of nuance. So just wanted to put that out there. And yeah, please join us at the school board meeting tomorrow night to support the school or send an email.
Great. Thank you, Christina. I would just like to echo what Christina said is the reality is the best way to show your support at this point is to send an email to the school board or show up at the meeting tomorrow and be present. The community is behind this and we need to show them that. And I think we have the ability to do that. There are a number of questions in the chat. And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to turn my camera off so you don't have to watch my finger go through the chat. I'm going to scroll through. Shauna has been working hard to answer a lot of them. One I did see up here that wasn't answered is about the building and if it has been secured. And we have a draft ordinance in front of the borough at this point. We have a sponsor. And right now they're in their budget season. So we actually have to, nothing else happens in that season. So it's going to happen right after that it comes before the borough assembly. Jennifer has been working with them closely along with Ben in order to make that happen. And so I'm going to ask if they have anything to add to that at this moment.
Heidi, I can speak to that. Oh, looks like Ben popped on.
Oh, just that, you know, there's been support. The borough doesn't want to have an empty building, and we're working through the details on, you know, where the line is on what maintenance the charter is responsible for and what maintenance or, you know, the where the landlord is responsible, and you know, making sure we have a handle on the utility costs, and yeah, just a plan to get a lease. So yeah, it's in process and we're moving as quickly as we can given the borough's timelines.
And I think the only thing that I would add is just to say that it's a really straightforward process. You can use a public building for a public purpose. So we're not worried about whether or not we will get the building. it's just a matter of like, we're finalizing a lease. But yes, that we're right where we hope to be on that.
Perfect. Thanks, you guys. So now we'll take any questions from the audience. If you have a question, I believe you can raise your hand and I will call on you, and then we'll get the question and then I'll direct the appropriate person to answer it. So what questions does the audience have at this moment? There have been quite a few in the chat, so if you put them in there, great. If you wrote any down on your scratch paper, now's the time. Yeah, don't be shy. There's a lot that's gone into this and a lot of pieces that are coming into play, and it is a robust application that has much complexity to it. So please ask away. Okay.
I think most
Well,
people are using the chat, Heidi.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like it. Well, I appreciate everybody's coming on here tonight. I know it's a school night, and it's May, which seems to be the craziest month of all. The email is in the chat there, the contact at Pearl Creek STEAM. Please use it. We are ready to answer questions, and we'll get the answers if we don't know them off the top of our head. I did see one more question that just popped up in the chat, and let's see, it's realistically, what are the numbers of interest versus availability looking like? And so we can answer that question based on the number of applications we have now, but that is going to change over the next few weeks. So those aren't hard numbers. They're not final numbers by any means. So please know that as we share those with you. And I'm going to have Christina, I think, share those. She spent some of the day working on that.
Yeah, no, I think one really important thing to point out is, so our district has had a wait list of over 500 on a charter wait list. And so one thing we're really excited about is to offer another option to kind of relieve that wait list. And by having a larger charter school, so what we're planning to do is start with 3 kindergarten classes, and then 2 to 3 first grade, and 2 of every other grade going up. So as far as like your likelihood of getting in, I mean, statistically speaking, it's a lot higher than something like Watershed, where there is only 1 class, just because we have more availability. Right now, we're really happy with what the applications look like. It looks like we have, like, if we were to open the school today, it looks like we'd be oversubscribed in kindergarten by just a couple kids, and maybe a couple other classes were maybe oversubscribed by 2 or 3. But overall, right now, we're sitting at kind of like, you know, we have 3 full kindergarten classes, and then 2 full for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and only 1 for 6th grade. So that makes sense. We figured a lot of kids would want to, you know, go to junior high. But we do think it's important to have the option for children to stay in elementary school for that extra year. If you're a weird parent like me, it's like, stay little forever.
I wanted to point out too, I think it's, I've had a couple people, I was just talking about this today with somebody, to point out that a very reasonable trajectory, there's the question of whether or not we'll add 7th and 8th grade. And I think, and certainly we're offering 6th. And like Christina was saying, that's going to be a community driven decision. So we kind of can't answer. Our community is about to grow really a lot, right? A lot more voices in the decision making. But Effie Cochran currently starts at 7th and 8th for middle school. So I know that there's been kind of this question mark over what happens if you've got a 6th grader and then they need to live to middle school, and that's this really exciting option. We've been kind of having a conversation with them. They have a really great model. They've got some amazing success over there. I was also gonna say, Heidi, that there have been some excellent questions in the chat. I don't know if we might want to pick a few out to go over the answers with the whole group, but I learned there too.
Yes, I'm headed there now, and it looks like Shauna wants to say something. So I'm gonna let her answer something, say something before I get into the chat questions.
I was just going to respond to the question about technology. So to begin with, Pearl Creek will not have 1-to-1 ratio for devices and students. And we feel strongly that young students don't need the access to technology that they currently have. However, with that said, we do see it as a potential support for some students. But again, for our younger K1, 2, that's going to be minimal. As students progress and get older, you know, STEAM is focused on a lot of science-minded coding type things. In addition to when kids go to either middle school or high school, much of the work they do is online in Google Classrooms. So we want kids to be prepared without having them spend all day on the computers. So I think our philosophy, kindergarten through second grade, is very minimal device usage. Third through sixth, expanding on that, but really giving them the foundational skills they need to be successful as they get into those older grades. But I think we, as parents, kind of collectively agree that we want to see a decrease of device time in school.
Yeah, and from all the speaking I've done with the teachers on our curriculum committee is that tech will be used as a tool, as an avenue, as a component in order to teach what we need to teach. It's not going to be a substitute for outdoor time or a substitute for other components of this curriculum. And that's been a big question that has come up for sure. We have a hand raised. Is it Darlin?
Yes, it is. Hi. So I apologize. I missed the first hour of this meeting, and sorry if it's repetitive. But I was wondering, do you guys have anything for special ed teacher for IEPs?
And I'm going to let
you can't?
Shauna answer that. Go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, so we will have a special teacher on staff as well as a support aide. So we can accommodate students with their special education needs. The only exception being is our district does have district-wide programs that would be intensive resource, extended resource. There used to be a program called structured resource. Those programs are placed at schools through the district. And so currently none of those more intensive programs are placed at charter schools. But what I've mentioned to the district is I would be open to getting a district-wide program if the support were to follow. But right now it would just be a students in resource.
Okay, thank you. Also, is this recorded that we can go back and look at on? I'm not familiar with how this works.
It is being recorded, and I believe we're going to post it onto Facebook and then also onto our website. So you can go back and look at the presentation. And then, Darlin, if you have other additional questions, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer questions in more specificity if you have them.
Thank you guys, and thanks for all your hard work.
Thanks for logging on. Let's see. What other questions do we have? I think there's one question from Kendra, and it says, my assumption here is that you don't move up the list if you volunteer for a committee ahead of time, correct? And that is in fact correct. The founding members have been identified. And so once you get, once we do the application and lottery process in June, you will know if your student has gained enrollment or not. And then those volunteer hours start to accumulate. We are always looking for volunteers ahead of that time, but that does not guarantee admission to the school. There's a question here from Amanda and about projecting multiple classes per grade, and is it dependent on applicants? And I guess I can answer that one. We are looking at 3 classes for kindergarten and first, and then 2 for the remaining grades. If we, and Christina, I believe talked about this a little bit, if we end up with 1 classroom of 6th graders this first year, we will do 1 classroom of 6th graders. And that just really, it again, we can't give any of those concrete answers until after the application period ends. Let's see. To sign up for a committee, we're going to have you email contact@pearlcreeksteam.org in order to say what you're interested in, and then we'll get you on that committee list. Just send an email that way and we can make that happen for you. And then it looks like Darlin has another question.
Yes, did you guys choose the other reading and writing programs you'll be using?
We
I
did. I'll let Shauna
I can
answer
answer
that.
that. So for our reading and math program, we selected Open Up Resources. It's through Harvard University. And so really looked at a good balance of skills that we were looking for both reading and math.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other, oh, there one just popped up. What will the class sizes be? And I will let Shauna take that. I'm happy to take it. It's 18 for kindergarten. Go ahead, Christina. Oh, sorry. The class sizes, the PTR is 18 to 1 for, well, kindergarten will have an aide. But there's going to be 18 kindergartners and then 22 once you're in first grade through third, and then 24 fourth through sixth. Let's see. I don't see any other questions. Bessie has one about will we turn away some sixth graders if you don't get enough kids to fill 2 classes at the planned class size? And again, I unfortunately am going to revert to saying to be determined. It's all based on our applications and what that looks like. We have talked about if we need to, do we have a 5-6 class? And that has not been determined, in part because we don't know what the numbers will look like. And I think Shauna just answered it in the chat as well. Any other questions that we can answer while we have everybody here? Okay. Well, write down that email address, contact@pearlcreeksteam.org. We're happy to answer any questions. And we will go from there. We are excited. We ask for your support tomorrow in the school board meeting. Come join us, be supportive, testify, send emails. Our goal is to move forward and make this happen. So I want to thank everybody for attending and being invested in your kids' education. So thank you so much. And we will hopefully see you guys this summer. Take care, everybody.